In a time where one of my major goals this year is to get through my never ending backlog and, of course, make more videos, Jusant happened to be the next game on my list, which I totally let random number generator decide on what game to play next because I'm indecisive and I can't make up my mind 95% of the time. I was not expecting a game like this in another time where I'm trying to expand my horizons by playing entirely new genres of games and get a taste of the different things in life rather than my first person shooters and my ARPGs. Jusant is a game I needed in gaming life, and not just for the simple reason of wanting to divert to a different genre. It's for relaxation, to breathe, take things in, think about life while reading letters, and figure out what the next step is. This game helped me to recalibrate, and I'd like to talk about what made this game so special for me in the 4 hours I spent on it. Let's get into it, shall we? Jusant is made and published by Don't, a studio well known for their critically acclaimed lightning in a bottle title and series Life is Strange, which is one of my favorite games of all time. It's quite fascinating to see the studio go from interactive storytelling, hipster high school drama, and the ability to reverse time to a climbing simulator. And this goes for many of their later titles like the RPGs Banishers, Ghost of New Eden, and Vampire to the interactive fiction Gerda, A Flame in Winter. I'm so happy that they've returned into form with Lost Records, Bloom and Rage on a side note. Jusant tells a story about a young kid and a cute little creature called the Ballast, who embarks on a journey to climb an insanely tall tower, put the pieces together, and figure out why you're doing this in the first place. The game is very mysterious at first and starts off with the definition of Jusant, a French nautical term for a receding tide, and shows this perfectly within the next sequence, with ship debris and rusted parts being scattered all over the shore and covered up in sand. I love how cool this introduction is because you have no idea who this kid is, the creature in your backpack, and he's wearing what appears to be vintage 3D glasses from the 2000s but without the red and blue collars. As the story progresses, you'll learn about the expedition that took place in this exact tower, gathering and reading letters from the people around here, listening to shards that give you a glimpse of what happened here at the time through the use of sound, and in particular, letters from a supposed Bianca, as shown in the extras menu when going back to look at the letters you found. There's no exact confirmation on who this Bianca is, but given that it's a named character, she must have been of some importance to the young kid at some point in his life. Over time, the ballast would not only open up to you, but also discover that it's a creature made of water, and part of the reason the journey began and this expedition was here in the first place was to find a new source of water, as the water down in the surface was dying out to the point it ceased to exist. Bianca's letters or journal entries are more personal and important to the narrative of the game, and the frescoes and altars you find sort of emphasize the ballast being related to water, with paintings lighting up and each of the biomes being awakened of nature when the kid blows into the horn, which serves as this game's completion of chapters, since there's 6 chapters you'll be going through. There's no dialogue in Jusant, and Don't instead use the environments as a means of telling the story, very akin to other atmospheric and walking simulator games like Gris, Abzu, and Journey, and it works really well because of each chapter taking you to a different biome. There were times where I just had to stand still and observe, like getting to Irithyll of the Boreal Valley in Dark Souls 3, and it's just so beautiful to see moments like this where I wish developers would opt for more of an art direction approach rather than graphical fidelity. Elden Ring to Miyazaki looks bad, and FromSoft prioritized the game's graphics last over everything else. But goddamn, every location that you go into in that game is always impressive to look at. I mean, just look at Lanedale. Jusant's gameplay loop is incredibly simple at first glance, but shapes up as you go through different biomes. This game is highly recommended to play on a controller, so for the love of God, if you have one, use it. Don't be a randy who decides to use mouse and keyboard over it because you're too used to it. God will thank you later. Climbing is as simple as using the back trigger buttons, pacing yourself, and taking your time. You don't spam buttons or use the thumbstick to go up, but rather use the back trigger buttons one at a time to climb, holding the other, pressing the button you need to press, and repeat that process. It may sound stupid to hear it be said on the microphone, but just trust me when I say that it's simple to where you can get it down after 10 to 15 minutes. Whilst climbing, pitons can be attached to either holes or manually in order to maintain your height if you fall, retaining progress. Stamina is also something to consider, as you'll gradually run out whilst climbing and performing actions, and the kid will start to breathe heavily and the screen will dim as you're running low, which you can regain by simply resting on a wall or making it to the place where you're meant to climb. It's good to have this added in as a mechanic so that the game isn't just about W keying and climbing without any sort of consequence. Swinging and running off of walls is a thing, and you're able to reel yourself up and down over pitons, easily regaining your height and maintaining the stamina without using any of it. You can manually place up to 4 pitons, but I always found myself using 2 at most, 3 if it was a super long climb. Playing through the game reminded me a lot of the Uncharted series, where a lot of the game's platforming had you climbing a ton of things, and it triggered memory flashbacks like climbing the train as an injured Nathan Drake in Among Thieves, or climbing up the big fortress in Drake's Fortune, even swinging in the first minutes of Thief's End in the prison. The game goes through lengths to change it up by adding new mechanics as you go into the different biomes, such as the ballast being able to wake different kinds of nature, which includes vines, plants, and cool sparks that can elevate you, quicker stamina as a result of the sun being put out, special pitons that fully restore your stamina, and wind elevation that you need to adjust for when pushing yourself up. Little things like this make the gameplay loop exciting, fresh, and a little tough, having to readjust and adapt to the current biome that you're in. One biome to another, you'll be using the skills that you learned previously, and all of it gets combined in the wind chapter, conserving stamina, taking note of the wind, and carefully ascending yourself up without causing yourself to fall. Collectibles are also a thing too, such as cairns, altars, and frescoes as mentioned before, which can easily be found by using up on the D-pad, which the ballast will mark any collectibles that are nearby, as well as the main objective. Ballast? What are you pointing at? Oh, you're pointing at my YouTube channel? Do you want people to go into the channel and hit the subscribe button with notifications turned on? Do you also want people to hit the like button if they enjoyed the video? Thanks for helping me, Ballast. Who's a good little creature? You're a good little creature, Ballast. Each of the game's 5 biomes all stand out on their own and remind me of a roguelike in a way, where you go through different levels and environments. I'm a massive fan of desert levels in video games, and Jusant's desert level does not disappoint, being my favorite area in the entire game. There's these cool rock shell creatures that you can attach yourself to help you climb up, and it's so cool to see them all climb in the general direction that you're supposed to go, as staying on the same shell for too long will cause them to exhaust and stop. Which, I mean, makes sense. They're getting exhausted because of your tiny hands. I learned that Donut didn't texture the objects, but rather relied on Unreal Engine 5's Nanite and Lumen technology to texture objects, with all details of the game world being baked into the geometry models, which helps to give it that painting, plastic sort of art style, if you will. It gives me Life is Strange vibes, since the art style of that game is so similar in terms of that painting feel, especially when you look at characters and objects. It's also, at the time, one of the first games to use UE5, so to be able to showcase that tech and make it look as good as it does, says enough about the power that this engine can have when used right. Lightning and shadows are super good here, especially in those darker areas of the game. I've seen some criticisms on the game's models looking block-headed and not as realistic, but given the opportunity Donut had to showcase the engine off and intentionally wanting to paint a world instead of photorealistically making it look as real as possible, I respect the decision to keep the game the way it looks. Earlier in the video, I mentioned how Jusant has helped me to meditate and think about what I've got going on in life. And to be honest, I needed this type of game because up until now, I've been playing competitive games on and off thanks to Marvel Rivals bringing that interest in me, and a lot of the times, these games are about thinking in the moment and future when it comes to competitive, so life really never comes to mind when I'm on these games. It's usually just to gain rank or kill time and play some quick match or casual with friends, and by the time I head off, I think about the session and get ready for the next one. Even with normal games I play, like my first person shooters, I'm not really sitting down and thinking about life. I'm more or less playing the game to kill time and have fun. That's the whole point of games, right? To take yourself away from the real world and into a virtual one where you care for characters, shoot things, and have little to no consequences in the real world, aside from maybe your mental health. Jusant and a lot of these climbing and walking simulator games give you time to observe, admire, and reflect on the game and how far you've gotten as a person so far, and that's exactly what happened to me. Life is important to me in terms of a few things at the moment: finishing university, playing video games, being healthier, and transitioning over to content creation when I'm done, since this is something I really want to do. And I even took the time to plan ahead thanks to the amazing soundtrack this game provides. It gave me a hard reset and time to think things through and really commit to the goals that I've set myself for this year. Relaxing is something that I really needed to do after the stress I had from climbing bronze to Grandmaster in Marvel Rivals, considering how many hours it took to get there and all the people I had to deal with for the whole journey. Being able to just sit down and vibe out to music while climbing a tower gives me relief and comfort. Competitive games and fast paced games can be so stressful, man. To be honest, I'm not sure how this segment is going to be received and whether or not people care, but I wanted to put this out as a note to myself, so that I can reflect and look back on this one day when I feel that I've achieved what I needed to do and life gets even better than it already is right now. Jusant ran super well for me on my 3080 with a Ryzen 5600X CPU, having 60 plus FPS pretty much all the time on high settings with DLSS quality on. Though the game did massively dip in some areas, but not to the point where it was unbearable or unplayable. I heard complaints about the game's stutter and lag prior to playing, but didn't really encounter any of these issues. Smooth sailing all around. Jusant is a fantastic game from a company that I didn't expect the climbing simulator to come out from. Simple, fascinating, and amazing to look at. It's a solid 3 to 4 hour experience that respects your time. Has a cute little creature you learn to love by the end, and the additional mechanics make the game go from a simple climbing experience to something fantastic, active, and fun. My only problem with this game is its price, which I think is a bit steep, considering how short the game is. But if you do decide to go completionist on it, it's definitely worth your money in that regard. But for a chill player, I recommend getting Jusant on a sale to save yourself some money. This game made me genuinely happy, and I want to play and experience more climbing or walking simulator games like these. Journey next? Question mark? If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. If I missed anything, comment down below. I'll have more coming to you soon. Peace.